Hey guys, Dumpling97 coming in here with another tank review. Today we're going to be doing a tank that has been requested and that is highly debated as being either decent or a pretty bad heavy tank. It is the KV-3. This is the other tier 7 Russian heavy tank, the other being the IS. Now, how does this compare to the IS and why is it different? It's different because this has more armor than an IS and it is slower than an IS. So here you're going down more of a super heavy Russian heavy tank compared to the IS, which the KV-3 line is for the Russian super heavy tanks, the STI, KV-4, and the eventual IS-4. Now, just a quick armor overview of the tank because, well, let's face it, that's why anybody would even think about getting one of these things. If we open the basic inspector, we see it has 120 millimeters of armor at the front, 90 on the sides, 90 on the rear. On the turret, we see it has 130 at the front and then 115 all the way around. But let's go into that in more detail because there is some deceptions about the KV-3. So let's start with the front plate. This front plate is actually only 80 millimeters thick, but it is well angled, so most of the time people won't be shooting for that, and it could even be an auto bounce at some angles, so not too much to worry about there. But if somebody is shooting down at you, it is an easily penetrated spot. The lower plate right here, which is angled slightly downwards, is actually only 100 millimeters thick, so if you're shooting slightly up at a KV-3, that's your weak spot in, and even if you aren't, it's still pretty weak even though it's angled downwards. It's not too much of a slant. And lastly, the only part that is 120 millimeters is the upper plate right here, the second bar where the machine gun port is. That's 120 millimeters and can be quite bouncy. However, that machine gun port is 100 millimeters of armor only, so that's a little frontal weak spot for you. But the side armor, it really doesn't have any kinks. It's just good. It's a solid 90 millimeters of armor, and at tier 7, side scraping at angles like this can usually yield you some pretty high bounces, especially if you're top tier. And the rear armor, well, it's rear armor. It's 90 millimeters thick. Hopefully you don't expose that. But now let's go to the turret. This is where the KV-3 starts to look a little bit ugly. So you see 130 millimeters at the front of the turret, and it doesn't seem that bad, honestly. But here's where your issues start to come in. The area around the gun, this gun mantlet, has nothing behind it. It's spaceless. So area outside the gun is only about 115 millimeters thick, depending on angling. And even the areas just outside the gun mounting, these little cheeks outside the gun mantlet, they are 130 millimeters thick, but they are flat, so those are easy penetrating spots as well. And another issue is if you're looking at one of these, even at a slight angle like this, that turret cheek, because it's only 115 millimeters thick, instantly becomes penetratable. Around this angle, that's about 160 millimeters of effective armor right where the cheek starts to curve. Also, another bad thing about this tank is its rather tall cupola. This cupola has 115 millimeters of armor, so it can bounce some things, but it is a pretty big weak spot and can yield you some issues. So overall, the armor of the KV-3 is actually it's quite decent for a tier 7, but it's definitely not the best, and tier 8s and 9s will eat this thing for breakfast. This is a tank that does very well in a top tier matchup engaging tier 7 and below enemies. Anything above that will cause you serious issues. But now let's get into the actual stats of the tank. So the KV-3 is kind of a rough grind if you don't have the free XP or the 107 unlocked to get to it, or any of these packages. So when my tank is stock, it has an 85 millimeter gun and a very crappy turret. This is probably one of the worst stock tanks to play. If you have to play this thing stock, I'm sorry, but if you have the free XP to get this 107 plus the upgraded KV-3 turret, I definitely recommend it. Once you get that, it's not as bad, and the 100 millimeter isn't bad at all, has a good DPM, and then you get a choice of two 122 millimeters. So in the end, we end up with the 122 millimeter D25T, same gun as the IS, 4.88 rounds a minute, which is actually quite good considering the 390 alpha damage, 175 pin with record rounds, 217 with APCR, and 61 with HE with 530 HE damage potentially. The aim time is pretty horrible at 3.4 seconds, and the accuracy is pretty horrible at 0.46. Nothing new. This is a Russian heavy with a 122 millimeter gun. The engine has decent power of 750 horsepower. This thing isn't a speed demon, but it can definitely get around. It has a 18 degrees a second traverse speed, which is about average to lower for tier 7, but this is a super heavy Russian tank, so that's expected. As you've said, the turret armor is 130, 115, 115. The traverse speed of that turret is 22 degrees a second. Pretty slow, but not the slowest. And the view range is pretty horrible for a tier 7 at 340 meters. That's a big downfall of this tank. It is blind as a bat. And the signal range is 730. Doesn't really matter too much. Now, let's go into what supplies, crew, and equipment I would recommend. We'll start out with the crew. I have moved my KV-3 crew into another tank, but I will show you what I would recommend. Obviously, repairs I think should be the first thing on any heavy tank. You're going to want that. Next, I would go for 6th Sense, just to know when you are spotted. And then next, I would probably go with probably some driving perks. So probably off-road driving, because this thing is not very mobile. Clutch braking for sure if you're going to plan to keep this tank. And if you want to get another perk after that, I'd recommend Brothers in Arms, because I recommend Brothers in Arms in all my tanks. But now let's go over to the supplies. Now, because this thing doesn't have a very good penetrating gun, I recommend you carry a semi-healthy amount of premium ammo. I carry 10 rounds of APCR out of the 38 round capacity of this tank, so about 1/3, 25% of the capacity of this tank I use APCR. The rest AP, 4 HE shells just for those tough situations or the situations where you need to take out low health targets. Now, if you go into equipment, I don't have anything mounted on it right now because this tank's been kind of dormant in my garage, but actually I didn't realize it until I was thinking about doing this review. I never played with this tank with the equipment, and I thought it was great. I mean, I never played with equipment, but if I was going to put equipment on it, I would definitely go large caliber tank gun rammer, get that extra DPM out of the already decent rate of fire. You're going to want improved vents to get all your crew skills up. And lastly, it's really up to personal choice what you would want after this, but I would maybe go for a spall liner or a cyclone filter, because as it is a Russian tank, the engine doesn't like to be hit very often. Now I'm going to just finish this off by giving you my opinions of this tank before we hop into the gameplay. I do believe the KV-3 definitely has a spot in everybody's garage. However, like I said, against tiers 8 and 9, it just really can't compete. You have to play very passively, shoot opportunistically. But as a tier 7 heavy only, comparing apples to apples with tier 7 heavies, this is a pretty unique one. I really do like the way this thing plays out and how side scraping this thing is very effective. There's not many other tier 7s that can side scrape well once you actually start thinking about it. This is one of the only tier 7s that has somewhat of decent armor also. So all in all, I think it's a decent tank. I don't think everybody will like it. I definitely don't think, most people will like it at first, but I think once you get it fully upgraded, it'll be a good addition to your garage. Alright guys, that is the garage review of the KV-3. Now let's go ahead and Alright guys, here we go, coming into our first bit of gameplay here on El Haluf. As we open up the menu or the map to see what sort of enemies we are facing, we see that there are some tier 8s on the enemy team, so as I said in the garage, we have to be very careful against tier 8 and tier 9 opponents, or they will most definitely shred us. But I'm not too worried, as there are some tier 6s and plenty of tier 7s for myself to fight, and hopefully I will prevail. If you're wondering what that little symbol is on the upper hand right, that is the Elgato symbol. I was messing around with that sort of stuff when I was recording. This is actually it's actually off a Twitch stream, and I just happened to be recording at the same time, but I forgot I'd actually left that little symbol up there, but it shouldn't impede on any sort of important stuff, so hopefully you guys don't mind it too much. But I'm looking right here, and the good thing is on El Haluf, there's plenty of room to side scrape on these edges up here where the heavies and mediums and sometimes TDs do get out. And luckily I have a little team coming with me. That's one of the main things on El Haluf. If you go over here alone, you're just gonna die. It doesn't matter how good you are, what tank you're in. Most of the time, one team will push this side harder than the other and usually die, especially if you're there alone or only with one other person. You're probably going to get your life ended. But I'm pulling up here to the scene. But, because I know this tank has good side scraping potential, I'm going to go ahead and move right up. And as you can see, we already scored our first hit. Got kind of a lucky shot there. We've taken some damage already getting to this spot, but I believe it'll be well worth it. So we're going to blow on this corner, and we are going to start trying to side scrape, making sure there's nobody there right now. I know there's somebody there because, well, I just shot somebody there, so I'm going to take some time to readjust and adjust my side scraping. Looks like I got another friend coming over here who wants to do the same thing. Now, if you want to know how to play the KV3, alright, this Chaffee just did that. If you want to know how to play this thing, do exactly what I'm doing. Side scrape, try not to expose yourself too much, put one into the PZSFL, a nice hefty roll into the 400 damage. As I said, for a tier 7 gun that does 390 alpha and can hit nearly up to 500, this gun can really damage other tier 7, especially tier 7 TDs. There we see an AT7, but we're going to try to shoot the PZ, but the IS-3 comes out and takes a hit for him. And as you can see, our side armor is working considerably well. I'm trying to hide my upper plate, but there we go. We get a bounce off the very well angled upper plate. Luckily, I didn't hit the bottom plate. See the AT7 kind of loop in a lucky shot there. This gun isn't bad for medium to close range. We're about medium range right now. Any further than this gun would probably start misbehaving a lot with .46 accuracy. So we see the AT7 again, take another shot, land a little bit more of a low roll into the low 300s, but nothing too bad. Side scraping here. This Black Prince is doing a great job using his very effective side armor, and me myself using mine. Missed the Tiger Piece Cupola, and we got a little heavy tank line going on here. We're all just trying to preserve our health and side scrape. I see the, what looks like a Tiger. Yes, we hit him. We clip his side armor, and see, this is sort of the example I'm using. Really, this tank and only the Tiger P are the tanks with very strong frontal armor for tier 7 heavies. I mean, we can brush through a Tiger, and even the Tiger P is riddled with weak spots like its turret, as you just saw. Went right through that, but I'm tracked right now, and I don't have a repair crew on this tank, or at least it's not fully trained. So here we go, I'm angling myself again. Get one more bounce into the side armor. Looks like my tracks got taken off again, but no damage once again. I'm waiting for my tier 8s and tier 7s to move up. I was getting a little frustrated at this point because they were failing to move up. Artillery narrowly misses us, thank God for that. It looked like an AP shell because I think the HE would have splashed me a little bit. Very lucky miss there. So we're going to keep moving up, and as you can see, the mobility of the KV3 is not that bad. We're going at a decent speed right now on what I would consider to be medium to possibly hard terrain, but Sand River is mostly sand dunes, so medium to hard terrain. And we see the Tiger, don't even stop, don't need to stop. And now once again go right into my side scraping position, trying to expose my side armor, give him some bait to shoot at. And there we find a little AFK ELC AMX, hit him for about an average roll, doesn't quite kill him, and then our teammate finishes him off. Now this has been pretty much a shock and awe game. Luckily my team was better than the enemy team, and we were able to triumph. So there's a little T-34, maybe T-34 too. We finished him off. And this is where having a nice 390 alpha damage gun comes in. Finishing off tier 7 tanks with, you know, 1/4 their health left. Most of the time you'll just finish them off. Kind of take an excited shot at the SG-14-1, I believe that is, and we miss it, but I'm not too worried about it. He can't shoot me because, well, he's trying to prepare for his last stand. So we're going to keep moving up here, and pretty much this game just ends. I might get one more shot in, maybe I won't. But this is the way you should play the KV3. Make sure you got a team around you. Once again, don't get isolated in heavy tanks unless you super know there's not going to be more than 2 tanks in front of you. Because, obviously, no matter how good a tank is, no matter how good you are, you do not want to be isolated in a heavy tank. It will not end well. And also, the KV3's 1400 hit points did give me a lot of leeway to take some extra hits this game, something a tank like the T-29 could not do with the 1250. I probably would have been dead already, also because of the lack of hull armor on a T-29. So the KV3 definitely does have its strengths, but the gun performance and sometimes the armor and effectiveness at times can ward people off of this tank. But this game, it worked out very well for us. Picked up 124,000 credits. with about 5,000 XP, 3,500 damage, over 1,000 damage blocked by armor. Got the high caliber, picked ourselves up a new mastery badge, and overall had a pretty good game. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick tank review. I only have one bit of gameplay for you guys because I feel like that's all I need to justify this. I've said everything else about the tank that needs to be said. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any comments on the video, good or bad, feel free to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to give the video a like, and tell me what tank you'd like me to review next, and if only having one game to review is a good thing, or you feel like maybe I need two like usual to fully get a better opinion of the tank. But guys, just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.